Katana here doing my review for John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. Obviously, as the title suggests, it threw me off because I didn't realize that, saying it out loud, I was like, that's actually a really long title. But as the title suggests, there will be spoilers in the second half of this video, but naturally, I'll let you guys know the full-on spoiler warning when I get to that segment. I think that's going to be most of the review because, admittedly, it's John Wick. It's it's an action movie. It's not really the deep, pièce de resistance of the story, and it's just no, it's John Wick. He fights people, shoot, slice, dice, cars, trucks, horses in this one. It's really good. It was actually really entertaining. And I would say, I actually like this more than I like the last one. I think Chapter 3 is better than Chapter 2. So far, 2 is actually the worst one, which, oddly enough. I like all three of the movies still. I still think 2 is really fun. But there was in my review, I remember mentioning there's one moment in the whole movie where I was like, it seems like it's been a minute. They've been talking a lot, and it's not, I felt like it was too much space between the action, which was kind of the generic sort of sequelitis issue when it comes to just pure action film, where it's just crazy action. It's simple, it's the simplest story ever. They stole his car, they killed his dog in the first movie. Chaos. The second movie, much more story based. So it was it was that normal concept of okay, they're getting into the story stuff. And that kind of dragged it down the tiniest little bit. There's, like I said, literally one section where I felt there was too much story, not enough action. I didn't feel that in this movie, and I felt the action, technically, was even better than it was in the last one. I'd have to rewatch the last one to be okay, how much does it stack up compared to the last one exactly, beat for beat. But there's stuff in this, and there's still stuff, from the second movie where I'm there's some stuff that happens in the sequel where I'm without a doubt, that's some of the top moments that'll be in the franchise, period. So it's not it just blows it out of the water entirely, whereas nothing in the second movie matters anymore. It's just that this one overall I felt was a better experience because I felt with it being closer to what the first one was, I felt like it worked. And I was okay, I felt like they had the first one, all action, the sequel blending the action with a bit more story, and I was okay, like I said, literally it's one point. And then this one, I felt like they caught their stride where I was okay, now they've done the first movie, all action, pretty much. They've done the sequel where they put a little bit more story into it. And then this one, I felt like they found their rhythm to do it even better, a better blend of mixing the story in with the combat. Also, I think it just helps that it's a lot easier of a story compared to, once again, the second movie, which was the most story-driven one. It's a lot like the first one because, obviously, if you're watching this, you've seen the second film, but it ends with him basically being excommunicated, excommunicado, because they said everything was in Spanish because it was fancy like that, I guess. But, he's excommunicado. And so this one, it's not like the last one. It's okay, he's officially going on this specific mission, and then this stuff happens. It was oh man, everybody's trying to kill him, and that's the movie. It's him killing everyone in the first one, everyone trying to kill him in this one. And so it just makes it an easier story. It works for what the movies are. It just works perfectly. It's just much easier. So I'm curious what they would do if this one was the second one and then the last movie was the third one, how that would play out. Which obviously it couldn't be because it's literally the story of it. So it couldn't be that way. But it just makes me curious. Okay, what if they instantly went from the first one to this one and it was just crazy action, and then somehow he gets out of it or whatever, and then the second movie starts where he's back in the life or whatever, and it's how would that have played out? Would it would it have been even worse of a movie? So it does make me wonder. It's very interesting, but I think this one does work overall better than the last one because I think it hits the stride of what John Wick is supposed to be, which I think everyone across the board knows. These movies are just it's a lot like The Raid for anyone who's seen that, or I shouldn't say most martial arts movies, but a lot of martial arts movies. You don't really care much for the story, unless it's Jackie Chan, in which case it's a really good comedy action movie. A lot of martial arts movies, it's the story is just so insane sometimes. It's that doesn't even make sense, but cool action scene. That's what the John Wick movies are. That's what they are. They're just crazy action sequences, super simple story. They even poke fun at the story in this movie where it's because all three of these movies take place over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. So it's this is the dude who just killed 800,000 people. I don't know why I said 8 dozen. He probably kills 8 dozen in the first 40 minutes of the first film. But it's they poke fun of it at it so much because everyone's he was Baba Yaga in the first movie, and then in this one they make fun of the fact that he's the dude that killed everybody over a dog. So it's just kind of funny. They make their jokes. They're very referential to the franchise as a whole. But the action was good. I thought they did a good job with the action. I thought they did a better job with the comedy because they had some funny stuff in the sequel, but I felt like they did it a lot better in this one. I felt like they just got their stride perfectly. blending what the first two movies were and like doing it where it's like, okay, the story itself also I do think is a bit more entertaining because it's like, okay, there's a lot of elements going into the rules and stuff behind what the Continental does and what they did do in the last film, and John going out and being excommunicated. So who can he go to? Who's allowed to help him? Who's not allowed to help him? Who breaks rules? Who follows rules? So I felt like there was actually a lot more entertainment in this one, story wise, than the last one too, because we got to see what happens when these rules, which oddly enough is admittedly one of the entertaining things about this franchise, with the first two movies, what they have with the Continental and the rules of the hotel and just in general this guild, this League of Assassins, the rules that they have, I thought that was actually cool. So this movie is like, if you are entertained by that, which I think they did a fantastic job building that up, just in the first movie alone. But with the first and second movie, that where they talk about the rules, like this is what you have to do, this is how you do it, this is where you can go and what you can't do. I feel like they did a good job showing like this is what happens when the ultimate rule is broken. Like you have one man who's like, he's public enemy number one. Everybody's an assassin, that sort of deal. And it's just like, how does that play out? Like I said, people who do follow the rules, who don't follow the rules, who kind of half follow the rules, you get to see a lot of different variations on how things play out. So I think they kind of helped themselves with that as well, where they were like, all right, let's just go back into chaos. And that just kind of helps the story along because it gets back into kind of the nitty gritty of what these assassins do as far as rules and what they will and will not, stand by. So I thought that made it more entertaining just watching that play out as a part of the story as well. They add a new element for some of the stuff that they have as far as like the hierarchy of what these characters do and who they have to listen to and stuff like that. So they introduce elements there. They show off specific elements and it's like, okay, some of this stuff was referenced before. These things get referenced. Little stuff here and there. So I like the way they handled it. I thought it was really entertaining. I think that's pretty much all I can say. That's not a spoiler because otherwise, like, all I'm going to do is talk about the specific action sequences that I enjoyed. I will say all the stuff from the trailer was definitely cool. So all the stuff where he's on the motorcycle, on the horse, the stuff with Halle Berry was definitely cool. I'm trying to think of what else they showed in the trailer. It's all sweet. It's all sweet and more. Like the stuff. Oh, the scene where he's like throwing the knives and stuff like that. That was a great scene. It was really good action, but it was also funny. Some of the stuff they were doing because it was just so chaotic. By the end of that fight scene, it's just insane. So that might be my favorite one, just from like just how crazy it got. But definitely love the movie. Like I said, it's not like the tippy top of storytelling or anything like that. But if you're going into it knowing what it is, which I think third movie you should know what it is. I think you'll enjoy this one more than the second one. It's hard to say if I like this one more than the first. I would have to rewatch it, but I think the action was so good, and considering what the movies are, I think I like this one the most. Actually, I think this might be my favorite one out of the trilogy, and I think they did a good job with that. Where it just like the action is good in all three of the films, but this one it's so chaotic because, like I said, everybody's coming at them. So some of the fights are just in like the weirdest places. So a lot of that is very entertaining. So I would highly recommend seeing the movie. This is your official spoiler warning. Go out, check out the movie. Watch all three of the films. Tell me what you think is the best one. Rank the movies. I mean, there's only three. 1, 2, and 3. How you would rank the movies in order. But full on spoiler warning. Getting into spoilers right now. I have to start with. Oh man, I don't even know. I guess actually start with the ending. I wasn't expecting them to end it the way that they did. I thought for sure it was John Wick 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and that was it. I thought it was going to be a trilogy, and this was the end. And then it was like, nope, they end it, and they're going to make a fourth one. And I was like, I'm curious how that's going to play out going into the next film. Will it be like the second one? Because I was like, that seems like a big story thing, but at the same time, he's still excommunicado, technically. So it does make me wonder how chaotic that's going to end up being. I hope they bring back the twins that fight him. Well, they aren't twins. Well, they might be twins. They could just be different knights. But I assume they're just siblings. But those are the dudes from The Raid. If anyone's ever seen like The Raid Redemption or I forgot what the name of the second one was called. But if you've seen those movies, that was the dude. Those were the guys from The Raid. So I was like, that's super sweet. And I was very glad they didn't die because I was like, cool, they can bring them back for the next movie. Also, we'll, I assume, see Common in the fourth movie because I was expecting him to be in this one because he got stabbed in the last movie. And it was like, oh, he didn't kill him. He let him. It was like, you can take that out and try to kill me, or you can leave it in and you'll, find some time to get somewhere safe. So I thought Kame was gonna show up because like, okay, they referenced it early on in the movie. It was like, the adjudicator comes in. It's like, you got 7 days. You got 7 days. I was like, okay, the guy could potentially heal up in a week, I guess. This suspension of disbelief. It's a dude rode a horse and fought people on motorcycles. So I was like, I think I can suspend my disbelief that a guy healed from a wound to the heart, or at least to the chest. He technically wasn't. It wasn't his heart. He would have died. But I was like, I guess a guy could heal up in 7 days. It's a worldwide assassin cult. So I'm like, I guess I could suspend my disbelief if the dude was in the movie. But turns out he's not. So they're probably gonna save him for chapter 4, which may or may not be the last as well, because I thought this was the end. So that was interesting. I was like, okay, the way this movie is going, he gets picked up, and I was like, all right, Lawrence Fishburne is alive. And I was like, I was just sitting there. I was like, okay, he did this fight, he did that fight, he went to that part of the world, he came back, freedom, chose against the freedom, did this, did that, pushed off a building. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm at the end of this movie. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's been 2 hours, because there's no way that was an hour and a half, and then the next 30 minutes is them like killing off the people. So of course that was the end of the film, and they're going into whatever they're going to end up calling chapter 4, which I would assume would be the end, because it seems like the whole point is like, all right, it's time to wipe this stuff clean, and then we go for the high table and take them down. So I'm excited for that. I was like, cool. It definitely seems interesting. Like I said, I don't know if I'm as excited for that one as I was for this one, because I was like, oh, that's gonna be super cool seeing him go up against the world pretty much. And I thought they did a good job with that too. He didn't fight like 100 trillion people like I was thinking. He fought enough though. I think he fought enough people, not even counting the ending where they just sent in armored up assassins, which was interesting to watch. Because I was like, man, this is full video game mode. It was like the enemies that take 5 shots to kill, and it was just funny watching. I was like, okay, they've got bulletproof armor and stuff. It did make it a little weird to watch some of the choreography, because they would get shot, and so they would have to do like the fake stumble thing, because it's like, oh man, I'm so dizzy, but obviously they aren't really that wounded. So it was like, it makes it a little weird to watch that, because that's what kept happening. And I don't know if they were putting this in or the people kept doing it, but I swear I kept hearing them scream like over and over again. It was low, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I keep hearing them go like ouch, and I was like, it's weird. It felt weird. It didn't really take me out of it though, but I love that ending where they do that crazy fight sequence. But everything that he did even before that, I was like, yeah, they fought a trillion people. Like, he fights the giant, skinny Andre the Giant dude in the library, beats the crap out of him. That was insane. I was like, Jesus. Like, some of the, I think that and the next fight, I think that's probably why those stick out the most, because they were like some of the craziest kills that were actually in the movie. And they were slower paced. So like, some of the stuff they do on the motorcycle is insane. Like, people were like flipping over motorcycles and crazy stuff like that. It was nuts. But the scene where he just beats this dude with a book and breaks his jaw, and then he like puts him on the table and just cracks his head down and snaps his neck. And then the scene with the knives, and they're just busting out windows and stuff and just chucking knives at each other. And then the last person, he's like slowly like putting it on him, and they actually show it, because I was like, are they really gonna do it? And it's rated. I was like, I just wasn't sure if they were gonna go that far, with the CG and stuff. And he like slowly is like digging it into his eye. I was like, that's gross and intense. But man, that was a good fight. And then he just like, once again, he just launches an axe across the room and kills the last dude. But I was like, man, that is crazy. So those two were nuts. The ending fight, full video game mode. Love that for sure, because okay, that was another thing. So they had the people in the armor where the choreography was a little weird, seeing them like they would get shot and then they would have to stumble, but they aren't actually dead and stuff, and so they would have to stay down for a little bit and then get back up. The scene where they were kicking him through the glass it got so funny. I think that was the point. They were just like, just kick him through glass, just like just kicking him through glass. It was super funny. Like, everyone was laughing by the end, because they kicked him through like 5 different things. But it was funny because the way they did it. And they probably did, it looked fine. It was, one take, just boom, and then he launches back. But there were times, I could tell, like, you could see, like, obviously the dude isn't kicking him hard enough to kick him through the glass. Like, he'd kick him, and then Keanu, you could tell, like, he'd take the hit, and then it would kind of be like the split second where I could see, like, he registered, he took the hit, and he was like, okay, and then he would jump backwards into the glass. Because there were parts where it was just like the kick didn't, like, he did the full kick already, and it didn't launch him, and then it would be like that split millisecond where it was like, okay, he got it, and then he jumps backwards, and I was just like, it was so over the top, where he was, I could literally see that he was like jumping backwards into the glass when he would take the kick. But I love that scene. I thought it was cool. Like, those characters in general were freaking sweet, and that's probably why I like this movie more. I think the action was done better, because these were the coolest characters. As far as the villains go, best villain characters they've done in the films because they had ninjas. They put ninjas in the movie. Super soft spot. There's always room in my heart for ninjas, even if they're the villains. And the way they portrayed these characters was so well done because they were literally like hiding in the shadows. Like the way they did some of that stuff, I just thought was super cool. Like it was very simple. Like they would literally be like ducked down and then they would lift their head up and you could see their face because they would have hoods on or, you know, it was just their black hair so you couldn't see anything in the shadow and they would lift their head up and they were just like, they were like triple teaming people. They would like flip over somebody and kick them into the other person's sword and then they would push them off and then they would grab them. They were like slicing people. It was a lot like John shooting people in the head like 4 times, like the dude in the pool was like, he's dead. He's dead. That and the scene with Halle Berry, there's a part where Halle Berry walks past the dude and shoots him in the head, and John shot him in the head too. And I was like, that's just funny and over the top. But it was stuff like that, and they were doing it with like wakizashi and stuff, which are single-handed blades. And there would be like slicing people's throats, like it seemed like 4 different times. I'm like, you stabbed him in the heart. I saw what you did, and then you had to slit his throat, and it was just crazy. And then they would be doing like these fancy cuts and stuff, like when they cut up Lawrence Fishburne and like sliced his face up and stuff. And I was like, man, they were just cool, and they were just wrecking everybody. They were just killing people off left and right. They went through, you know, Lawrence Fishburne's compound. I don't remember that dude's name, like, in the movie whatsoever. But, you know, they go through his compound, and they're just wiping people out left and right. That was one of my favorite scenes, too, just because the way that they were, like, teaming up on people. And they, you know, they don't use guns at all through the movie, and they just take people down left and right. And it just looked cool. It was just super sweet just to see how that was working. And they were, you know, they would roll past someone and slice their leg, and the other person would, you know, slice their face up. And I was like, just the way that that was choreographed was incredibly well done. I was like, that was like perfect choreography for that. And that's not something they've done yet as far as like, you know, really hand-to-hand combat. Like it's a lot of gunplay with hand-to-hand mixed in, but that was like full-on martial arts type stuff. So I really appreciate that because as someone who's like a huge fan of martial arts, I like close quarters combat. That's why I like these movies because eventually, you know, he'll shoot a bunch of people, but they always run out of bullets and then they start punching and kicking. And that's like immediately my favorite part because I just like close quarters combat. And in this one, I was like, okay, they have them for like all the crazy close quarter stuff. And then of course, like the end fight after he kills all the armored people, like he's going through hand-to-hand combat or, you know, sword combat and stuff like that. So that was like some of the best stuff. And, you know, like, that's why I like the first 2 fights as well because it was like hand-to-hand stuff, all the crazy, you know, shoot 'em up action in the middle, and then they, you know, cut to the villains and they're slicing people up and it's just insane. It's like a full-on crazy martial arts movie, and then it, you know, kind of back to shooting for a little bit with armored people, and then back to some hand-to-hand stuff to, you know, kind of end it all out. So I was like, this is great. That's exactly what I want to look at. So I don't think they could do that because he killed everybody in the movie because he killed like all the people off except for like the twins. So the 2 of them are alive, but everybody else has been killed. So I was like, oh, they probably can't do that again, unfortunately, and have like the ninjas, you know, dropping people left and right. But it was super cool. So I love them for sure. Action sequences I thought were great. Halle Berry stuff was good, which I think they did some of the best comedy with her because, of course, the dude shoots her dog and the dog's wearing a bulletproof vest, and then she shoots him, and they just kill everybody. And he was like, he shot my dog, and he's like, I get it. And everybody, you know, everybody in the theater started laughing because it was like they made some really obvious jokes to, you know, like just obvious jokes. So I thought they did a good job with that. But the action with her scene was good. I was surprised she wasn't in the whole movie. I honestly thought, I guess it was because, you know, it's Halle Berry. I thought it was like, oh, okay, this is like the last person that he could go to. And I thought that would be, you know, maybe halfway through the film and then she would stick with him. That's kind of how I thought the movie was going to play out, is that once he met her, they were going to team up and kind of survive together. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know if she'll come back in the 4th movie. Obviously, they have the big reference to the fact that he got her daughter out of like the whole organization and hid her away somewhere. So I was like, that's a huge plot point. I don't know if that would ever come back in the next movie, or for anyone who doesn't know, they're doing a Continental series, which I want to say is on Sci-Fi, coming out on Sci-Fi or FX, one of those 2 channels. But it's supposed to be, you know, about the Continental. And I assumed I think it's supposed to be a prequel. I think it's supposed to be before the first film. I could be wrong. I can't really remember. But I would love to see it take place like after the movies, just to see how that would really work out. It would have to be after this one, now that this one's officially come out. So I don't know if they've already written the 4th one, and so they know how that'll take place or whatever. So I'm not sure. I don't think it's even like in production. It's basically pre-production, and I think they're still doing like casting and all that. I don't know if they have a real date for that movie even, or for that show. But it would be interesting to see how that plays out and where it does fit in the timeline, because I'm sure you can look it up. I just don't remember right now. So that's out there if you guys are interested. But it would be interesting to see her character kind of pop up either in the next film or in that series if they kind of deal with that storyline. But I thought it was cool. I liked the educator or adjudicator. That's technically how you're supposed to say it. I thought her character was interesting. I thought she was gonna fight. Admittedly, I thought at like the very end, I thought she was gonna fight, like how they do like the boss battle stuff. And so he kills him, and I was like, it would be interesting if they do the parlay stuff, and then she ends up fighting him at the end, and he kills her, something weird like that. But it's like, okay, I like the character. She just goes in, it's like, this is what's gonna happen. This is how things need to play out. These are the rules. You didn't follow them. This is where we go. So I like how that was handled. But all in all, I am excited for the fourth film. Like I said, the only reason I'm worried is because it's going to be so story driven. And it's funny to say that. It's not like I hated the last movie in any way, shape, or form. It was literally when he goes to, I wish I could remember more of that movie, but it was like after he goes to wherever he went, what other country he went to in the last film, it was that part. It was like when he got the mission, he went to the other country, he got dressed up, he picked the guns out, they were talking about this and talking about that, and it was like, I felt like it was just a little bit too long before they got to the next action sequence, which was at that big concert he went to, and he starts killing people in the sewers, and he makes his way up. And I was like, that was literally the one portion of that whole film where I was like, I felt like it went a little too long without action. That's the only thing that took that entire movie down, because I didn't feel it in the first one, and I didn't feel it in this one. And I'm worried I'm going to feel it in the next movie, solely based on the fact that it seems like you're going kind of simple story, crazy action, bit more story, still crazy action, simple story, crazy action, and then the fourth one will be a bit more story, crazy action. So hopefully, considering, at least I think, in my opinion, they found their correct course with this movie, and it was like, this was the perfect blend of the story, which I thought was entertaining, because I was curious how, I wanted to know who was going to live and who was going to die. So I think it just made the story way more entertaining, because it was like, the stakes are so high for all these characters. It was like, I don't know if this dude's going to die, I don't know if that guy's going to die. People are getting wiped out in full compounds, but Lawrence Fishburne ends up living, stuff like that. So it's just like, I don't know who's actually going to make it through this film that's not John Wick. Like, I assumed he'd live, but I was just like, I don't really know about these other people. So that made it more entertaining in itself, because I do like the characters, especially the concierge. I was like, I really hope they don't kill him, because I would have been real annoyed with that. So I was super happy he lived. Like, even if they killed Winston, I would have been like, oh, that sucks. But the concierge dude, he has to live. He pretty much literally has to live. He's like the second best character in the franchise. So I'm looking forward to the next movie, but I'm like a tiny bit worried I'll get that feeling again. But literally, it was one point in the entire second film that I even felt like that. So I don't think it's not like I'll be like, oh man, it's bad. It's just literally like one point, and I'm hoping it's not expanded beyond that, because I enjoyed the second movie. But I like this one better, and I'm hoping to like the fourth one even more than this. But they won't have ninjas, so it's kind of like, I don't know. You don't have ninjas, you can't be at the top. Like, you just can't be. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll see what they do. They got to bring the guys back. If the fourth one is the last one, they do have to bring Common back. I don't know what the time difference would be between this movie and the next movie, because all the movies are like right after each other. So maybe they just do like another couple weeks, and then it's like, okay, he's healed after 2 or 3 weeks. Makes perfect sense. Common comes in. Maybe he'll be like the last person he fights. Somehow he'll be there with the dude from the high table. They fight out in the desert. Crazy video game stuff. The fact that he had to go to the desert and got picked up, that was some video game stuff. That was Uncharted 3. But it was good. It was still enjoyable. And he chopped his finger off, which was Assassin's Creed. I was like, they did some Assassin's Creed stuff here. All he needed was the little blade to pop out. But yeah, I love the movie. I thought it was really fun. I would definitely have to take my mom to see it. She loves like crazy action movies, and she'll really love this one. So I'm looking forward to it. I definitely want to see it again. I'm most likely going to see it again. I really enjoyed the action. Ninjas are just good. But yeah, I'm excited for the fourth one. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this movie. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, at least favorite parts about it. Naturally, with this being the third in the franchise, where do you rank it? I would love to know if you guys are surprised by the fact that they did do a cliffhanger ending where it's like, oh, this isn't the third, it's not a trilogy, it's a quartet, or they could do 5, which I can never remember what 5 is, but maybe it's a quartet, maybe they'll do 5. Who knows? But they did a great job with this one. I think this one, like I said, was even better than the last one. So I'm glad I got to see it. Like I said, definitely want to know what you guys thought about it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.